Welcome to Vivid Verses. If our words resonate with you, please subscribe, tap the like, and share your thoughts and your feelings in the comments. Now let's begin. You asked for the autopsy. You want to know how a 10-year merger dissolves in a 45-minute window. Most people want the dramatic retelling, the screaming, the thrown vases, the neighbors calling the cops. That isn't what happened. You know me. I don't do drama. I do logistics. I do risk assessment. And when the risk outweighs the potential yield, I exit the position. To understand the exit, you have to understand the setup. You need to understand the capital I expended just to get to that Tuesday afternoon. The deal with the logistics firm in Austin had been grinding my gears for 8 months. We're talking about a mid-cap merger, messy cap table, founders who thought their IP was worth double the market reality. I spent the last 2 quarters living on airplanes, sleeping in hotels that cost $400 a night but still smelled like industrial cleaner, and eating confidentially in steakhouses with men who were there for one-upmanship rather than close contracts. But I closed it. The commission structure on that deal was the walk-away number. I've had that number in a spreadsheet since I was 24. It's the specific integer where the mortgage goes to zero, the retirement accounts hit the perpetuity threshold, and I never have to take a call from a panicked CEO at 3 a.m. again unless I feel like it. When the wire hit my account that afternoon, I didn't feel elation. I felt lighter. The gravity of obligation just turned off. I drove home in silence. I didn't want noise. I stopped at the fishmonger on 4th Street, the only guy in the city who can tell you which boat caught the inventory and at what time. I bought 2 halibut fillets, thick-cut, wild-caught. I stopped at the wine cellar and pulled a Montrachet I'd been sitting on for 3 years. It was a structural celebration, a quiet validation of competence. The plan was efficient. Cook a high-quality meal, open a bottle that cost more than my first car, and tell my wife that we were free, that we owned the roof over our heads, that the race was over. Stacy was late. This was a calculated lateness. Over the last year, her punctuality had degraded in direct proportion to the time she spent with Sarah. You know Sarah. Her husband, Dave, is a developer who treats debt like oxygen. He leverages everything. Big house, leased cars, vacations on credit. To the outside observer, Dave is a titan. If you look at his balance sheet, which I have, he's an insolvent disaster waiting for a stiff breeze. But Stacy doesn't look at balance sheets. She looks at Instagram stories. I had the fire going. Not wood. Too messy. Too much maintenance. Gas. Clean lines. Steady heat. I set the table. I wasn't looking for a parade. I just wanted a partner to acknowledge that the heavy lifting was done. When she walked in, the atmosphere in the kitchen shifted. It wasn't just that she was late. It was the energy she brought in, a frantic, vibrating dissatisfaction. She dropped her keys on the granite island with a clatter that sounded like an indictment. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at the food. She was looking at her phone, scrolling through photos of a life she didn't have. "You're late," I said. I kept it neutral, just a timestamp. "Sarah and I were looking at the photos of a new place," she said, not looking up. "They finally closed on the Hamptons house. Private beach access, Seth. Private." I'll watch her for a moment. She was standing in a kitchen that costs more than most people earn in a year, and she looked like she was standing in a prison cell. She wasn't seeing the Montrachet breathing on the table. She was seeing a deficit. She was comparing our paid-for reality with Sarah's leveraged fantasy and finding us wanting. "Sit down," I said. "The fish is ready." We sat. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. It was the kind of silence that precedes a structural failure. I pour the wine. I watch her take a sip. She didn't taste it. She swallowed it like it was hydration, completely missing the oak, the butter, the complexity. "It's nice, Seth," she said. Her tone was patronizing, the way you talk to a child who cleaned his room but missed a spot. But honestly, I just spent 4 hours listening to Sarah talk about the architecture. 6 bedrooms. A guest house. They're flying in a designer from Milan for the interiors. I cut into the halibut. The sear was perfect. That sounds expensive, I said. Property taxes alone on a shoreline property in that zip code will run 50 grand a year, plus the maintenance staff, plus the insurance. Dave is leveraging debt to buy status. He's exposed. She dropped her fork. It hit the china with a sharp, violent clink. God, you are so small, she said. That was the opening volley. I stopped eating. I analyzed the statement. It wasn't about my height. It wasn't about my personality. It was about my risk tolerance. I have news, I said, ignoring the insult. I wanted to put the data on the table before we got into the emotions. The merger closed today. The payout is in the account. I transferred the funds an hour ago. We can pay off the mortgage tomorrow. We will be 100% debt-free by Friday morning. I waited. I expected the relief. I expected the realization that we were bulletproof. Debt-free means you can weather any storm. It means you own your time. She stared at me, blinking. Her face didn't soften. It hardened. That's it? We're paying off this house. Yes. So we aren't moving? Her voice went up, sharp and brittle. We aren't upgrading? Seth, Sarah is buying furniture that costs more than my car. She's talking about hiring a full-time house manager. And you're sitting there, excited about paying off a mortgage on a 4-bedroom colonial. It's freedom, Stacy. It's the math of freedom. It's boring. She leaned back, crossing her arms. This was the climber persona taking the wheel. We call it next rung syndrome. She didn't want security. She wanted an audience. She didn't want to own things. She wanted to be seen buying things. I have needs, Seth, she said, her voice dropping to that cold, negotiating register she used when she wanted something. I have standards. My friends ask me why I settle. Sarah asked me today why you don't take risks. She said you're safe. Do you know how humiliating that is? To be the wife of the safe guy while everyone else is building empires. I took a drink of the wine. I focused on the flavor profile to keep my heart rate regulated. Anger is a waste of energy in a negotiation. It clouds judgment. Go on, I said. Honestly, with the way I look, I could be with someone who plays in the big leagues. I stay fit. I handle the social calendar. I am an asset, Seth, and you're treating me like I should be grateful for a home-cooked meal. She paused. Then she deployed the leverage. She put the gun on the table. You should be worried about keeping me, because there are plenty of men out there, men with ambition, who would kill to have me on their arm. And they wouldn't bore me with talk about paying off mortgages. I looked at her. I really audited her in that moment. I stripped away the 10 years of history and looked at the person sitting across from me. I saw a woman with zero income. Her vehicle lease was in my name. Her credit cards were authorized user accounts on my primary line. Her social calendar consisted of 3 lunches a week with women who secretly despised each other's success. She wasn't a partner. She was a dependent who had convinced herself she was the prize. She was threatening to leave. She was threatening to withdraw her value from the partnership. I ran the scenario in my head. Scenario, hey, I apologize. I backpedal. I promise to do better. I buy her a Range Rover to soothe the ego. We take out a jumbo loan to buy a house we don't need to impress people I don't respect. I work until I'm 75 to service that debt, constantly chasing the moving target of her satisfaction. Scenario B. I accept her terms. I let her go. The silence stretched out. She thought she had won. She mistook my calculation for intimidation. She thought I was terrified of losing her. Are you hungry? I asked. She threw her hands up, an exasperated, theatrical gesture. What? I'm talking about our future, about my potential, about the fact that I am suffocating, and you're asking about food? You push your plate away, I said, my voice flat. devoid of the emotional hook she was fishing for. I am clarifying the situation. I need to know if you are unhappy with the halibut or if you're unhappy with the man who paid for it. I'm saying you could do more. I'm saying you're lucky to have me. I see. I placed my napkin on the table. I smoothed it out. Let's look at the facts, Stacy. I build wealth for autonomy. I do not exist to provide content for your social media feed. I do not exist to help you compete with Sarah's husband. And since you brought him up, if you actually looked at the public filings for his development firm, you'd see he's currently leveraged at a ratio that borders on criminal negligence. He's one bad quarter away from liquidation. She scoffed. You're jealous. I am solvent, I corrected. There is a difference. And regarding your threat, you believe your physical appearance is a currency that creates leverage. You believe you can trade up in this market. I leaned forward. I locked eyes with her. If Sarah's life is the benchmark, and if you believe you can secure a man of Dave's status who will tolerate your spending without the stability I provide, you are welcome to test the market. She laughed. It was a nervous, jagged sound. She wasn't used to resistance. She was used to me buying peace. She was used to the checkbook opening to silence the complaint. You think you could talk to me like that? She said. I could be out of here tonight. I could be on a date with a millionaire tomorrow. You need me, Seth. You're boring without me. You're nothing without me. The hypothesis, I said, standing up and picking on my plate, is noted. I insist you verify it. I walked to the kitchen. I scraped the rest of the halibut, $40 worth of protein, into the waste bin. It was wasteful, but the visual was necessary. I rinsed the plate. I placed it in the dishwasher. I'm cutting off the supplementary credit cards in the morning, I said. I didn't turn around. I spoke to the sink. Since you are in demand, and you are confident in your ability to secure a new patron, I assume you won't need my capital to finance your transition. You wouldn't dare, she said. Her voice wavered. The reality was starting to bleed in. The cards are already locked via the app, I said. Check your phone. I didn't yell. I didn't throw her clothes on the lawn. That's low-status behavior. That's emotional incontinence. I simply withdrew the subsidy. I went upstairs to the guest room. I locked the door. I didn't sleep well that night. Adrenaline is a hell of a drug, but I didn't waver. The next 7 days were a masterclass in logistics. Stacy waited for the apology. She waited for the flowers. She waited for me to come crawling back, begging for her validation. It didn't happen. I moved my operation to the guest room. I stopped the cleaning service. I did my own laundry. I bought my own groceries. I cooked my own meals. I ceased all transfers to the joint account. The house became a Cold War zone. She would storm through the kitchen, sighing loudly, slamming cabinet doors. I would sit at the island, reading the Wall Street Journal, acknowledging her presence with a nod and nothing more. When the realization hit that the credit card was actually declined, she tried to buy a $400 serums package at her spa. The dynamic shifted from standoff to hostility. She stormed home. She screamed. She called me cheap. She called me abusive. Financial abuse, I said calmly, is controlling a partner's access to resources to trap them. I'm not trapping you, Stacy. I am inviting you to leave. I am funding the exit, not the prison. You have a checking account with your own savings. You are free to use it. We both knew that account had less than $3,000 in it. She moved out 2 days later. She told me she was staying with a friend. She told me I would regret this for the rest of my miserable, lonely life. I didn't regret it. I sat in my living room that night. The silence was different. It wasn't the heavy silence of impending conflict. It was the silence of a library. It was the silence of peace. I looked at the mortgage paperwork on the table. Paid in full. The monthly burn rate of my household had just dropped by 70%. Stacy entered the dating market with a valuation based on who she was 10 years ago. She thought she was an IPO. She was actually a distressed asset. She was looking for a Dave. She wanted the high earner, the aggressive alpha, the guy who throws money around to prove he has it. But she made a critical calculation error regarding the supply and demand of that specific demographic. Men like Dave, men who value status, flash, and aesthetic above all else, do not date 36-year-old divorcees with high financial demands and a history of disparaging their ex-husbands. They date 24-year-old Pilates instructors who have no baggage and are just happy to be on the boat. The men Stacy could get, the men who were looking for a partner, for substance, for a peer, were the safe guys. The guys like me. The engineers, the consultants, the guys who wear unstructured blazers and drive Volvos. And she had just spent a decade proving that she despised men like that. I heard the stories. This town is small, and people talk. She went out with a guy in private equity. He took her to a Michelin star place, pumped her for information about my firm's recent merger, and then ghosted her. He was doing due diligence, not dating. She went out with a guy who leased a Porsche and wore a counterfeit Rolex. He stuck her with the dinner bill because his card chip was malfunctioning. She saw the reality of the high-stakes dating world she had threatened me with. It is brutal. It is transactional. It is a meat market where depreciation is rapid and mercy is non-existent. Meanwhile, the inevitable correction hit the Sarah and Dave household. It happened 3 months after Stacy moved out. Dave's company missed a debt covenant. The interest rate spiked, and his floating rate loans ate him alive. The Hamptons house went back on the market before they even finished the renovations. They're in litigation now. Sarah called Stacy crying, asking if she could borrow money. Stacy couldn't help her because Stacy had no liquidity. My life simplified. I hired a lawyer who specialized in efficiency. I told him I didn't want to win in a way that caused pain. I wanted to win by concluding the contract as fast as possible. We offered a settlement that was fair, strictly adhering to the prenup. No emotions, just math. I kept the house. I kept the retirement accounts. She got a lump sum that looked large on paper, but, given her burn rate, would last her maybe 18 months. I started traveling. I didn't go to party cities. I went to places where I could think. I hiked in Patagonia. I invested in a small vineyard in Oregon, not for profit, but because I liked the physics of growing things. I liked the tangible result of labor. I met Elena about a year later. Elena is a school principal. She deals with chaos all day, parents, budgets, bureaucracy. When she comes home, she values peace. She drives a Honda. She rents a modest apartment because she prefers to invest her surplus income in index funds. On our third date, I cooked halibut. I used the same recipe. I bought the same wine. Elena walked in. She was on time. She brought a bottle of red because she didn't know what I was cooking, but she wanted to contribute. She looked at the table. She didn't ask if we were moving. She didn't ask about my commission. "This looks incredible," she said. "You went to the fishmonger on 4th, didn't you?" "I did. They have the best inventory," she said. She sat down. She tasted the wine. She closed her eyes for a second. "Oak. Vanilla. This is special, Seth. Thank you." We ate. We talked about books. We talked about the logistics of running a school district. We talked about ideas. There was no negotiation. There was no leverage. It was just two adults sharing resources and time because the ROI of the companionship was positive for both parties. Last week, I got a text. It was from a number I didn't have saved, but I knew the area code. "I've been thinking about us, Seth. The world is crazy out here. People are awful. Maybe I was too harsh. I miss the house. I miss you. Can we get coffee?" I sat in my living room. The fire was going gas-efficient warm. Elena was reading in the armchair across from me. I looked at the phone. I ran the simulation one last time. Reintroducing Stacy was a liability. It was reintroducing volatility into a stable system. There was no upside. The asset had been liquidated. The loss had been written off. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel triumph. I just felt the satisfaction of a correct assessment. I deleted the thread. I blocked the number. The deal was closed. Thank you for listening. That brings today's story to a close. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing. See you next time.